Most ERP implementations declare themselves ready. Almost half of them don't meet their objectives. In this episode, Amber Severson, one of our experts from our North America team, breaks down the difference between being technically ready and being organizational ready for an ERP implementation, and why human challenges outweigh technical challenges 6-1. Yeah, 6-1. What real readiness looks like in practice, we explore today. And the assessment every transformational leader should run before that go-live date. Let's jump in to our episode today. Hello and welcome, Amber.
Hello, Emma. Thank you so much for joining me and having this great conversation today.
My absolute pleasure. Welcome to the hot seat. Hot seat today. It moves around the globe very intentionally. It's in North Dakota today. So London to North Dakota, we're here. Let me launch in to a question. I've talked about readiness, been playing around with the language a little bit already. From your experience, kind of walk me through when we're saying we're ready, what does that usually look like in the room? And I would encourage you to think about who's usually in that room having that conversation. So, hey, it's, we even have a special name for it, don't we? Sometimes the no-go meeting. Who's there? What are the considerations? And in your experience, what does it look like? And then that reflection point, how often does that turn out to be true and accurate?
This is a great question. And the people that you typically see in the room, they're going to be your project team, right? They're going to be your leaders, your key stakeholders. You're going to have some of your subject matter expert, your technical team, and you're going to be having conversations. And guess what? It's not going to be calm and organized when you're coming up to go live. You are going to see what I kind of describe as controlled tension, but there is clarity. There is clear ownership, and there are decisions being made at the right level. Oftentimes, we go into go live and people anticipate the success, right? But in a true sense, is the organization 100% confident? Not really. Have we prepared ourselves for zero disruptions? Probably not. That's the reality of it. We have to acknowledge that. And the people know who's making the decisions. The people know what the priorities are. And they also are aware of what risks are acceptable going into go live.
In your experience, Amber, that awareness of risk, and I might be putting words in your mouth, but I felt I heard then almost an acceptance of some of those risks materializing as issues, to use some of our project management language. What sorts of risks are they most commonly accepting of?
Yeah, I mean, they're beginning to, stop asking for perfection, right? So some of the things that you're going to see is that we've accepted that we've completed training and we've also evaluated the proficiency of the training. So there's risks to that. And we've accepted that there may not be the full desirable outcomes that we're looking for. Some other signals that you would be looking to would be, do we have active engagement? So have the individuals, what typically is said, people have stopped complaining, so we're probably all right. Well, that can actually lead to disengagement. So if we're not acknowledging those risks, accepting those risks, and then targeting them so that we can bring people kind of back to the surface, have that constructive feedback, have the people engaged, those are some of those risks that you might typically see.
Thank you. You gave us a bit of a sense of the cast of characters likely to be in the room when we're having the We're Ready for Live discussion. Who have you most commonly seen represented in that room from the horrible expression, the user perspective? Those of us in the organization that now have to adopt, pick this up, run with it to get the transformational results we're looking for.
Yeah, I would say typically we don't see the presence of the frontline employees or the end users in those meetings. But if we have had consistent sponsorship, visibility, engagement with the teams, we've set our managers up to reinforce the change. What we'll see is that that feedback or that continuous feedback is going to come back to the project team and the leaders through setting up each of the kind of the ecosystem is the way that I like to put it. We have activated and engaged all our levels of our ecosystem so that we can bring that feedback from those subject matter experts or the end users.
And sitting in 2026, we've been doing ERP transformations for more years than I care to remember, actually. Are you seeing a greater demand for those sort of feedback from the ecosystems, whether it's the formal, the informal, in those rooms? I think back to my early days involved in these sorts of changes. It was 85% about the technology. If the technology is ready to go, we're ready to go. I personally have seen a bit more of a rebalance towards, are we ready to adopt this? Is that something that you're seeing as well?
So we are seeing that in more of our current engagements and ERP implementations. But the key piece of that visibility is that organizations are bringing change management in early to the ERP implementation. So we're structuring and setting up a system for that feedback. We're aligning with the leaders up front, so everyone's speaking that consistent language. And like I said, we're activating those roles early on so that we can adapt it, right? We can figure out how to best receive that information back so that the leaders and the project team can make the right decisions, like I said, at the right levels.
So we're seeing some better change management throughout the life cycle of the implementation, the life cycle of the transformation. Starting to see that. Perhaps I should caveat what I've just said. Starting to see it. We still see an imbalance, though. I certainly do in my work, and I think I'm hearing that. We're in that room. There is still a significant emphasis placed on the technical readiness, perhaps compared to the people readiness. What's driving that continuing imbalance?
I think that it's an operational mindset. So we're not focusing on we're focusing on delivery and results. And organizations, they naturally gravitate towards things that are comfortable, right? Controllable, measurable. And those are typically those technical aspects in the project management, milestones, scope and budget, things that are, can be clearly defined and measured. And on the other side, for the people, that's just less visible, right? It takes time to see those outcomes and to put effort into that. And those are the things where it's hard to measure trust, right? It's hard to measure the end user's confidence in the organization, for one thing, but also within their teams about accepting and adopting and using a new system.
Yeah. It's frustratingly intangible sometimes, isn't it?
Right.
I still feel that we kind of go in the trust me moment, trust me. Mm-hmm. And whereas the technology, you have that, you can wrap your arms, it is very much more tangible. So I do get it. Let me just pull on that thread for a moment. So you're in that room. We see the imbalance, insufficient consideration given to this tantalizingly intangible bit about the people are ready. What do you think the conversation that should be happening in that room? What's the missing conversation for you at the moment? Or tough question, what elements of the conversation are missing perhaps?
I think it's a question as simple as, what are we asking the people to do? Right?
Love that.
What are we really asking them to do? And what are we capable of asking them to do in change? And so acknowledging that, we've talked a lot about acknowledging these things, the risks, evaluating the readiness of the entire organization when there isn't that 100% confidence, when there isn't an opportunity to have a zero disruption when we go live.
Yeah. Absolutely. I was trying to hide my smile because I put in this assertion that 45% of ERP implementations fail to meet objectives. And I think what you're beautifully taking us into now is the objectives. Tangibly, what do the people objectives and outcomes of this transformation look like? And it's tough when from the get-go, how that will day to day transform the work that our people do and how they do it and when they do it have not been articulated. Are you still seeing that tension on the engagements that you're involved with?
Yes, and I have also seen it done really well. So I mentioned before bringing change management in early, having the opportunity during kind of that discovery phase, even maybe before vendor selection takes place, that we're evaluating those people impacts, right? And so then we can truly understand what the impacts to the individual groups are and prepare our strategy centered around that. On the other hand, I've also personally been the project lead on an ERP implementation. In a previous life, I worked in operations and supply chain planning. I worked on a large ERP implementation, and I saw a lot of the gaps that we are uncovering with our research at ProSci. And a lot of lessons learned personally for me too, as a change advisor, is truly understanding, did we spend the time to focus on understanding what those people have to do, what we're asking them to do? So on one hand, I have seen that done poorly, and it impacted the success of that ERP implementation. We did have to push back go live multiple times. It was 2 times we had to push back go live. And then I've also, on the other hand, worked with a fabulous organization that had wonderful sponsor engagement. They were active and visible, and they recently just went go live in January. And they are still utilizing 6 months later some of the things we put in place early on in the project initiation. They did the 4 Ps. They asked the right questions about the people changes. And the sponsor is still today using a project canvas that we put together to start conversations, to align with all the leaders again. And then at the end of the conversation, utilize that as well. And so I've seen it both ways.
Amber, when teams realize late on that they're behind with the people side of an ERP implementation, they often do a change catch-up, endeavor to do a change catch-up in the final weeks. What makes this problematic? And if I'm leading slightly, in my experience, ineffective?
Well, I think that when we're playing catch up, there's always a cost, right? And so some of those things you're going to see that are a cost to the organization is that communication just replaces engagement, and training just really replaces readiness. And also teams just become kind of informed and they're not really involved anymore. And so those are like some key things you'll see. And I brought this up previously. That's where you will tend to see that there's the gaps in trust, right? That there's rework that starts to occur, that there's cost to the timeline and potentially impacting the budget, right? And so that's when all of the change starts to impact the entire project as a whole.
You're really very powerfully there, giving that sense. A couple of things I take away from that one. One, that we go from genuine engagement more into broadcast. So it's input, whether that's in a training room or a communication, and also the domino effect that can have. That rebounds, that makes other things topple. It all gets compressed, and there is cost actually involved in all of that. And I want to link back to something you were saying in response to the earlier question. And actually, you gave it as an example of change management done well. This sense that you have to continue doing a lot of this work, using the canvases and the 4 Ps after go live. So even if we have an organization that's trying to do some ready remedial work immediately before go live, we also want to encourage them, I think, to continue doing that after go live.
Absolutely. And behavior changes, those still need to be reinforced. Quick decisions still need to have support and sustainment. It requires ownership. So even if you are in a hurry up to go live, you're cutting the cost of change management, understanding that ownership is so important to even the success of post go live, and that sustainment is very important.
Yeah. I think I might have already preempted something I wanted to ask you in wrap up here. Some of our kind of takeaways and almost a tip if we could give someone. We'll come on. I'm going to hold on to it. I'm going to come back to you on it in a few moments. Have you any experience of that rapid catch up? Oh my goodness, go live is upon us. We better do something. So let's put the positive on this. Have you experienced of seeing that not done perfectly, not solving all the ills that have gone on potentially for months before, but having a positive outcome, helping adoption? And are there maybe one or two things that you could pinpoint that the organization did that helped? It's not a solution, but it might help.
Yeah. And I gave kind of two sides of the coin earlier with my experience in ERP implementations and some things that were done where we were rushing and trying to figure things out really near go live was that we paused, brought the team back together, did somewhat of an assessment and evaluated where were we weakest in the organization. And the approach was, let's focus on, 2 to 3 adaptable actions that we can take to help kind of recover where we're going and where we were heading. And it may not have been the full success of the project and cleared up every issue that we were experiencing, but it was a plan and it helped kind of overcome some of those challenges. So on the other side with the organization that had really wonderful readiness was that they leveraged their leadership and sponsorship really well to help keep people engaged leading up to go live. And they considered some of the factors that are going to impact go live, like the training strategy. So this is a big bomb. This is something that we've seen in multiple ERP implementations, myself personally, and other organizations that I've helped support. But forgetting about, again, how much effort it's going to take and what we're asking those people to do with training and having the appropriate training strategy in place. So when we got closer to go live, those were things that we didn't have to worry about any longer. Those were the things that were adapted all throughout the entire project lifecycle and kept us moving towards success after go live.
You mentioned right at the beginning of that, a pause. Asking you to cast your mind back. A pause is brave from leadership, particularly when the momentum for go live is upon you. My goodness, I can think of I count on one hand where at that stage of any sort of implementation, a pause has been sanctioned. And I'm really curious, I'm going to get you to cast your mind back. Can you think of one or two symptoms, for want of a better word, that indicated we need to pause here? And also, who actually authorized the pause?
Yeah, I think that what I experienced in one organization where that pause was really impactful to their go live and timeline, they realized that the completion of training, even though they were conducting and finishing their training, they didn't hit the mark, right? There was no way to measure the proficiency of the individuals who needed to use the system. And there wasn't any data to tell us. There wasn't quality data to tell us that things were going good when it came to training individuals. And that was a big risk. The organization knew that training was necessary, that it was mandatory, but they realized that they weren't able to say, okay, we've done this well. The individuals who made those decisions, it was the team. It was the entire team. And the sponsor overall really is a person who facilitated that conversation, that brought those risks forward. But it was up to everybody in the room that aligned on the decision to put a pause and to reevaluate what needed to be done to become more successful once they did get to go live.
Fantastically powerful example. Thank you. And so often we're working with organizations where we hear the mantra, we've done the training, therefore the people are ready, without the evaluation of whether the training has equipped our people proficiently to be ready to adopt and use well the new capability. Very powerful example. Thank you. I'm a transformation leader. I'm 6 months out from go live. You represent an organization that's a world leader in change management, research, methodology, consulting, and training. Take your pick, Amber. Advise me. What's the one tool or assessment that I must be using between now and go live to try and de-risk this for myself as much as possible?
That is a great question. And if we just jumped right into this organization right now as a change advisor, I would let them know about the ProSci Change Triangle. So the PCT is an assessment and it evaluates 4 critical aspects. So important to the success of any transformation and any change. And it evaluates the leadership and sponsorship. It considers the change management. It also looks at the project management, and all of that kind of builds us up to success for an individual going through the change. And it's quick, it's easy. It's a scale that's easy for leadership to understand. And you can find where some of the weaknesses might be. So if we had weakness in the leadership and sponsorship area, this is where I spoke about it earlier when we had to do the pause. This was where you can create those adaptive actions and really focus on what we're doing. So if we're seeing weaknesses in areas, that would help leadership really know where the temperature check is or the health of the project is at that point that you step in and conduct the assessment. Now, on the other hand, we also just talked about the training strategy and training engagement and having to pause and figure out what to do to resolve some of the challenges we're experiencing. So you can layer in another step to that to help you better understand how an individual is going through change. And that's through what I like to call a pulse check survey or our ADKAR assessment. So that evaluates that ADKAR framework so that we can uncover the underlying reasons why there might be resistance, why we might be hearing some silence from the individuals going through the change, and truly identify where our barrier is at so that we can target it with those adaptive actions that we saw within that ProSci Change Triangle.
I amen to both of those. I think from, as you say, that individual and then that organizational perspective, 2 of our core, our fundamental assessments that we use that give us that insight. And as you so beautifully put it, enables us to take those targeted actions to de-risk.
Mm-hmm.
Put it another way, let's be positive. De-risk, put it positive way, increase the chances of the successful outcomes that we're looking for.
Absolutely.
So that's a little, I've been scribbling notes as we've been going. Let me endeavour to do a little bit of a recap here. My takeaways from this, jump in if I miss something, Amber, when I miss something. First, we're ready usually means we're technically ready. And that actually is not the same same as the organization is ready for this. Secondly, although we both shared optimistically a bit of a sense that it's perhaps edging slightly better, there is still an imbalance between people readiness and technical readiness in favor of technical readiness. And that isn't accidental, and in many ways it shouldn't surprise us. It's partly because the technical readiness, apart from anything else, is easier to measure. It's more tangible and measurable. As a slight aside, I work with so many customers that when we talk about the people adoption measurements still say to me, oh, they're not quantifiable. Just, yeah. Heck they are. We're not very good at even articulating and quantifying them. To your next point, therefore, bring experts like us, get some advice for yourself earlier on, because we can support you with many other things, that including starting to articulate what the people side metrics that give you the assurance you're on route for success look like. The third one we've just been playing around with a little bit. Late readiness work can help, but it's not ideal, number one, and it's not a miracle cure. It's not the silver bullet. It can help de-risk, but know, therefore, that you're walking into post-go live still carrying significant adoption risk, which means you will need to continue doing your change management, and tools like PCT and ADCAR, even after go live, stick with them because they can give you a really good sense of where you will still have problem areas, low adoption, and as you put it, higher resistance. So change management is there even after go live. And finally, I think that the fact that real readiness is observable. It is sometimes tough to quantify. Culture change, attitudinal change, behavioral change is notoriously difficult to put metrics against. But we can observe behavior changes. And again, I think within our ProSci work, we have tools that can help us with that. And we do observe that in our organizations. So taking away from tool and assessment just for a moment, I'm that change leader. Perhaps I listened to your earlier advice about what I should do 6 months out, and I've been using PCT, a bit of ADCAR. I'm now really much, much closer to go live. I'm a month out now. I've perhaps let this go down my docket of to-dos a little bit. I'm starting to worry about some of those lovely observable behaviors you've been talking about. Perhaps I'm not seeing them. What's the one move I should make this week to get the best results I can for my go live?
I'm going to anchor back into the PCT. So get the right people in the room to have the conversation, truly evaluate those critical aspects of what's taking place in that project. And as a group, identify those adaptive actions immediately, assign them ownership, assign them a date to be done. And I guarantee you, you will see an impact from even just that little bit of effort that you're making towards a successful post-go live.
And the model, it is those 40 factors, as you say, they're tangible, they're measurable, remit the actions and execute them, come back, see how we're doing. Yeah. We have that mantra, don't we? Very often we say within our organization, don't let perfection be the enemy of better. Do those actions, it will be better than if you hadn't, even if you are just a month, 4 weeks or so away from going, yeah, technically we're good to go live.
And help root yourself in the facts. That assessment is going to help you uncover the facts that are taking place in your organization and broadly across the entire project. And that's truly going to help you say, all right, so what? What are we going to do? Right? It's the so what and the now what.
Amber, thank you so much for your time today. An insightful, thought-provoking, and experience-based set of reflections on tackling that organizational readiness for ERP success. I appreciate you being here and sharing that with us today. Thank you.
Thank you, Emma.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to Built to Change, a podcast by ProSci. If you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to follow the show to stay up to date with our monthly releases.